Hi there, and welcome back to Grief Class. I have taken a year-long absence, and so I wanted to talk a little bit about that. And then my plans going forward. I really am dedicated to this channel. I am so sorry that a year happened, but that is part of what I'm going to talk about today. Life does not take a break just because you're grieving or you've been through something in your life. Most of you probably have realized that by now, but we need to talk about that. So first, as I always say, I am certainly not qualified. I am not a professional counselor in any way. I do make this channel because I believe so few people will go to counseling, so few people will reach out. So I want there to be something out there for everyone. That's why I'm dedicated to this channel. And it isn't always intentional. I live in the mountains of Wyoming. If I was depressed today, there is a blizzard outside. Yes, it's April 22nd. Yes, there is a blizzard. It's snowy. I could somehow get to counseling. I could somehow go get some emergency counseling, but not in town, guys. No. I am an hour and a half from maybe 40 miles this way, maybe 40 miles west. There might be a counselor who has emergency hours, if I was like acutely needing help. So a lot of times when we don't reach out, there are factors in our lives that make it that way. A lot of times it's financial. So for any psychologist or anyone who are watching my channel wondering, who does she think she is? I am a registered nurse. I don't work as a nurse currently. I gave up that career partly due to my grief and the impact of, that's a whole nother set of videos, which I will be making. It's just, I have to, I do have to work still. I work behind me. This is my eBay room. This is my full-time career. So, anyway, I do always start my videos, though, by making it clear that I am no substitute for professional counseling. I've had counseling. It does help. It just helps to talk to someone, even if they don't give you back the feedback you're looking for, even if the way that they are trained is to listen and give very little advice, which is not helpful to me. That's not what I need. I need advice. I needed someone to tell me, listen, let's do this next step. This is your next step. I mentally and physically and emotionally needed to be told, not in an abusive way, like I'm your God, I'm going to tell you what to do. But I did need someone to intervene because I was just so emotionally drained to say, let's consider this being your next step. But a lot of the counselors I had, unfortunately, didn't even give me a next step. They wanted me to figure it all out myself. And that's where, I have videos I could make for eons. And that's why I'm very sad I cannot dedicate more time to the channel. But I do always intro by saying that I am not a substitute for counseling. Please go seek it out. It can help, even if it's not the perfect solution. It can help. It can take the burden off of your family, of your grief. It can just be a person who's getting paid to listen and you will find a counselor that will give you some help. I have turned to some life coaches. That is a new change since I made my last video a year ago. And that has helped more. They seem more willing to give advice, and I don't, she does not pretend to be a counselor either, but she does give me things to get me back on track, which I am still trying to do after 5 years. The second thing I always like to say is that the suicide hotline number is below. This is doable. It is not fun navigating your way through a divorce, through the loss of a child, the loss of a spouse, the loss of anything, even a career. I know a lot of you are coming out of COVID. Maybe you're here because your grief has to do with just this career you thought you'd have, and now it is gone. It is wiped out. They either fired you or they had to shut their business down, not by choice. So I am certainly not qualified to help you in that way, but get through the acute, very immediate feeling that you are in despair and that you need to do something about that. I am very happy now. I am a very happy, contented, happy-go-lucky person, even in the midst of what I've been through. So for today's video, I just want to give another couple of minutes about why I've been gone. I made my last video about a year ago in April. My mom's husband passed away 4 months before that. So I did manage to keep the channel going for 3 or 4 months there. My mom's husband died on January 17th. I made videos up until April 17th. But she was alone after he passed away. She's very capable, but she is 74. And I knew what it was like for me to just sort my son's stuff. Just that little, he was a college student when my son passed away. You know, and just a little bit of stuff I had to sort of his. He didn't have a lot of belongings. It was just brutal. And I waited years to do it, guys, honestly. So my mom had this whole house full of stuff. It was an unexpected death. And so I needed to be the one. I was the only one. My 2 brothers lived overseas at the time. One of them still does. And so they were a great emotional support, but they were not able to physically help her with the project of cleaning an entire house, putting things on Facebook. She wanted to do it right away. I definitely, as someone who's lost someone, the last thing I did was encourage her to, let's just start cleaning, you know, let's get out of here. That is the last thing I did. But she wanted to handle her grief by, okay, I'm ready to move. You know, her husband did have some health issues, and I think that, you know, she knew that he would pass away before her, so they had talked about some of these things, but it still was sudden that it happened so quickly. So anyway, she was handling her grief by saying, you know, I don't want to live out here in Texas by myself. I want to move closer to you. I want to see my grandkids. So that's what we did. We just started, and it was much more overwhelming than I thought it would be. It took almost 8 months before, from the time we started to when we got here. My stepdad had a huge gun collection. He had things, even though I'm a full-time eBay reseller and I can liquidate anything except for guns. That's the one thing. I don't have the right to do it or the licenses or anything. But yet I wanted my mom to get decent prices. So my son came out, who is also a full-time reseller, and we got a dealer involved. We did all the steps that needed to happen, and we liquidated whatever she just didn't want. And in the end, though, she had to buy a house, you know, closer. It was an 8-month process. A lot of it we could not help her with. She had to do all the paperwork because it was unexpected. A lot of things were not in her name. That's a whole nother story. Don't do that to your loved ones, please. You know. But it took her just hours of paperwork, and so my son and I did the cleaning, the packing, and my husband helped too. He came down several times. So my life was in 100% complete flux for 8 months because I live in Wyoming and my mom was living alone out there, having just lost her husband in Texas, and I have a business here, and you know, all of the stuff that goes with that. Thankfully, I did have a business that could eke by. I mean, my business went way down. But if I had been a nurse, I would have had to either tell her, hey, tough luck, hire somebody, or I would have had to quit my nursing job or take a lot of time off. So thankfully, I was in a position to help her. But, oh boy, guys, it was not perfect. So what I'm going to talk about today, but that's why I've been gone. I know that was a year ago now. That was a year ago in January that I helped her. My business still is just recovering because in August I finally got back to work kind of full time. And, you know, then the winter in Wyoming has been utterly brutal. I think it has been over most of the country. From January till even now, like today, I could go if I needed to go run my business out of town, get some inventory. I could go. I could get out of here. But it's kind of not the best driving weather even now, and it's April 22nd. So in January, February, March, the roads were literally impassable. They closed the roads. I could not go, or I would get stuck on the other side. Then I would come home and my life was total chaos. My office would be trashed, all of it. So that's why I decided to make today's topic, you know, that life just does not stop because you're grieving. The world does not stop turning because you've lost something. You're going to have to get used to that. It's one of the hardest things for me to understand. You know, have you ever met someone and they were born with some kind of a challenge in their life, maybe a physical or a mental challenge, and then they're born into a family that has no skills to take care of them. Have you ever asked God, okay, one thing is fine, but why does someone have like 10 challenges in their life to go through? Why? That is one of the things I ask God all the time is, why so much to one person? And that is kind of how I feel. Our life did not slow down or stop once my son died. We've had family issues. We've had my mom's husband dying. We still went through COVID, and I have a business. And, it was hard on that business. Thankfully, sales were up because online sales were a thing. But I had to find stuff to sell, and I couldn't go to the thrift stores. I couldn't do all of that. So life did not stop for me just because my son had just died. A year and a half later, things were shut down, and my business was struggling. And that's the last thing I needed. I needed to be in here having some success in some other way. My whole life there was crashing. Nursing was becoming this just beyond stressful thing, especially for me during COVID when I had such a huge loss in my life just about a year and a half before. I was trying to work as a nurse taking care of nursing home residents who had no one, and no one was allowed in to see them for years, literally years, and then they were dying, and they had to die alone or with me and the CNAs, and we were it. And that was just traumatic, very hard, but life did not stop for me. And then my mom's husband died. That was a huge impact on my business. And then even now, and I talk about my whole life on here. I talk about the truth of it, because if I don't tell the truth, no one will. I did, my son didn't die, and then everything was great, a year or two of suffering, and then now we're all back and life's good. That just is not my path. I hope it's your path. I hope you're watching this saying, oh, well, that's sad. That's not how it worked for me. I'm great now. I really hope you are. I'm not saying that sarcastically. I truly hope that all the chaos has stopped. I hope that you had one loss in your life, a year or two down the road, you've somehow fixed it all so that now there's no chaos. But for me, that just is not the truth. I don't feel sorry for myself. Please, no pity needed. It's just, I want other people to know that if you're feeling like, okay, I'm 5 years down the road, 2, 3, 4 years down the road, why is this still so hard? It's because life did not stop for you just to grieve. You're having to do that in between. Most of us still have to work. We still have to make a living. We still have other children. We still have other things to do. We have other chaotic things come our way. And that's where I'm at. So right now, I still have a decent amount of debt. It's much smaller than it was. But when my son died, and he had epilepsy for 10 years, those of you can go back and look at my story a little bit. But when he died, we had over $100,000 that had happened to us because of all of his medical bills over the 10 years. We had a deductible every year on our insurance. We had co-pays. We had 25 to 30 ambulance calls throughout his life. Other people would panic and call the ambulance. That's fine. I'm glad they did, because he did end up dying of a seizure. So I'm glad that we were able to have him as long as we did. I am happy that, they got him the treatment he needed, but it was very expensive. Every time the ambulance was called, that was thousands, especially out in California. That was very, very expensive. And so, life has not completely recovered for us. We still do have some financial impact from our son's illness. And I have been working full time every day, and it helps me to work. So it's been a blessing to have work and to love my work. But it has not gone away. I did not just, my son died, the bills stopped, and then all of a sudden $1 million came my way. I mean, we had so much to recover from, and we did have a tiny bit of life insurance for my son, but that went to the funerals and to the headstone, to be honest. We still had all the impact of all the medical bills, and that did not go away. So we are almost, I would say, in the next year or two, we should be free. We should be maybe not debt free for our house, because we couldn't double pay on our house. My husband and I, we are not like financial planners or something, but we also have common sense, and we know that you send in extra payments on your house, you pay off your car early, you go without a little bit so that you can double pay on something, and then life should happen well. You should not be carrying debt. My husband and I are the cheapest, thriftiest people on earth. We are willing to go without to not be in debt. That's how crazy it is that we of all people have ended up so deep in debt at one time in our life. Thankfully we have good credit, everything's good that way, but we still have to work to pay off debt. So even 5 years down the road, we are impacted by what happened to us with our son. And so I wanted to make this video to talk to you a little bit about your time frame. And this is something I'm going to talk to my life coach about. How do you dump on a poor life coach like that? I have so many things in my life. Once you've lost a child and then it has this like explosion impact, you have so many things. And so I've tried to be kind to her and just not dump like every thought, everything all on her. And she has been very helpful in getting me back on track, And I started out very small. I did tell her I'd lost a child right away. But I started out, with the little things that really were irritating me, getting my workouts in, trying to figure out this business and help it to not have a stressful impact on our life. And I started out with that. Now I am starting to get to know her and tell her more things about, it is 5 years down the road and I am just not there yet. Like I am just now getting a calendar, I'm just trying to get organized. My house still has not really recovered from that period of time when I went so long and just was struggling and everything. So what I want to talk about is that it isn't necessarily going to end for you guys. Now, I have a good and a bad thing I want to tell you about today. I just want to prepare you that it may happen to you. So my son died in July of 2018, and he was a filmmaker. He wanted to be. He had made some really small independent films. They weren't highly successful or anything. He was 23 years old. He was just finding his own path. He was making a living, though. He was living in Los Angeles, California. He had gotten his way out there because of all of his health and medical issues. We weren't able to pay for him to go live in California, that's for sure. I can't afford to go live in California. But he had 6 roommates, and he was willing to pay the price. He did what he had to do. But anyway, he worked on this film set in 2017 or 2018, right before he died. It was a few months, maybe a year before he died. And he was working as a key grip, whatever a key grip is. If you're from California and you're in the movie industry, you'll know what that is. And it was an important job to him. He loved it out there in the woods. I remember him telling us that he was on a film set in the woods. It was for 3 to 4 weeks. I don't think he got a dime. I don't think he got paid, but he got paid to eat out there and to live out there. And he didn't care. He was starting his movie career, right? And he never wanted to be famous. He just wanted to make movies or be on the set of movies. So he was so happy. And I remember him telling us about that. So anyway, the point of the story is that has been 5 years ago. My son had died 5 years ago. And literally 2 months ago, I'm minding my own business. I had made it through the holidays. The holidays are still a little tough. I'm doing much better at the holidays now because the holidays were not just about him. I have 2 other children. I have nieces and nephews who are young, and so Christmas is a big deal to them. So Christmas is not the hardest trigger for me. It's hard because I do miss him, and he definitely goes through my heart and my mind more during Christmas because I'm not buying him gifts, and he's your child. You shouldn't just be buying 2 kids gifts. You should be buying the 3rd kid gifts. So of course it impacts me. But I also lost my grandmother during COVID. She was 92. That death is a little easier just because of her age. I will admit it, but I do miss her desperately. She was a great friend to me all my life. I mean, she was in my life. I'm 53 years old and she just died 2 years ago. I had my grandma for 50 years. So, that is hard. So Christmas is still tough for me. But when your nieces and nephews are 4 years old and 8 years old, you do have something to focus on. And so I get through the holidays pretty good. Then Tim's birthday in February. is always a trigger. Had a couple of bad days around there. I still work, I still function, but they were very tearful days. And it might have even gone on 3 or 4 days. Even now, if I wanted to cry about it, I could. It's tough, guys. My son's been gone almost 5 years. And I think that people need to see this. I think they need to know that I am dealing with his death better than 99% of people I know, and I still could cry and go lay in bed today. I mean, it just, what impacted those of us who are, if you're watching this channel, chances are you're here for a reason. You're not just watching this for fun, unless you happen to be in the industry or you're trying to help your own clients or something and you're watching me. But 5 years, the impacts do not stop. So in February, I made it through his birthday okay. Not fun, we went to see the grave. We didn't really have a party. We're not a family that has a cake on his birthday. It's just too much. I could not eat the cake. I think that's great. I think it's a good way to do it. But myself, it would make it harder to make a cake and do all this. So I don't do that. I don't buy presents. I try to give more to his scholarship fund, and we try to give out those scholarships for his film. We have a scholarship fund. Someday I'll post that down below, and if people want to give instead of, if they're thankful for the channel or they want to support the channel, I will put that down there, but I just haven't gotten around to doing that. But so we have a scholarship fund for film students, because film students do not, as a rule, ever get a scholarship. It's the engineers, it's the whatever, and yet film impacts our life. TV impacts most of our lives. Most of us read books. We're into the creative things. We love art. We love movies, and yet none of those people who make those for us ever get a scholarship. And my son had to struggle to ever be in this industry. And so we have a film scholarship fund, which is doing very well. So I try to pour my time into that. So what happened, there is an end to this story, I promise. 5 years almost after my son's dead, you're thinking, okay, all the photos are done. You've gotten from his friends, especially right after the funeral, people give you gifts. I've had whole packets of photos, whole binders of photos given to me of my son, at different times, photos I didn't have at the time. It's amazing. And up until I would say about 2 years after he was gone, that was expected. People, were just cleaning out and they happened to find a photo of Tim and they'd randomly send it to us. But to be honest with you, I truly thought those days were over. I did not think that there would be that many new photos coming out of the woodwork. I thought maybe my mom, when we cleaned for her, I saw some of my son that I had sent to her, but I had all of those. I'd already seen them. Maybe 1 or 2 new ones that were at the same event, but they were a different, she took them instead of me. But nothing that in any way made me think or triggered me that, okay, this is unexpected. But in March, my husband keeps in good touch because of my son's scholarship fund. He keeps in touch with the university where my son graduated from film school, and he keeps in touch with a lot of Tim's friends. I do too at some level, but it's just too hard for me. I see them progressing and my son not, and it's hard. So I don't message them as much, but my husband does. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, this movie set that my son was on 5 years ago, he died 5 years ago, they're just now releasing the movie. COVID happened, the editing takes years. This is a small independent film, and so everybody has a full-time job. This is like their project at night. They have enough money to kind of get it going, but all of them have other projects, and I just was blindsided by this happening. So in March, we got an email, hey, this is the movie that Tim worked on before he passed away. Sorry, guys, I got stuff on my desk. Before he passed away, my son wasn't an actor, but he was on the film set, and they dedicated the movie to my son. Even though this is, again, it's not some big Hollywood movie premiere, it's a big enough movie that they had a premiere, and they have several premieres all over the country. So they contacted us and said, we're going to put your son's name in memoriam at the end of the movie, and he's going to be listed, as staff on there. And, oh, gosh. So after 5 years, guys, 5 years, new photos are coming out, photos of him on that film set, and they wanted us to go down. And I thought, oh my gosh, 5 years later, am I still going to be blindsided by these things, these new photos of my son and events that I need to be at to honor him? And I was not prepared for that. So in March, I did make the decision to go. It was such a blessing, really, in the end, that people had not forgotten him. And I'm sorry, guys, but I do think people need to see, So it's an amazing blessing that after 5 years, people have not forgotten him, and that they would even dream. He was a low-level helper on that film. Now, my son did make a big impression on anyone he met. It's true. He just had that personality, and a lot of his friends were the actors in this movie, etc., etc. But I did not expect that email to come out of the blue. So what is a huge blessing this year to just have this experience. We went down, we flew down. It was like a week and a half that I had to prepare, which is good, because I think I would have ruminated about it, which is not good. I would have been dreading it, yet thankful for it, like I am now. I dreaded that, but I was very thankful. So it was really good for us in the middle of the worst Wyoming winter that I have ever been in. Seriously, I've been here 25 years. I've been really sheltered in place, a lot of it. It's been hard to get out of town. We were able to go to California for 4 days, just my husband and I. We really had that one night, which was very difficult. We just went to one of the premieres. They did honor Tim. We met the director and the producer and all the actors. And of course, they only had good things to say about him. But then after that, we washed our face and we had a 2-day vacation. But the point of this video, guys, is that I want to encourage you that your loved one's not forgotten, but I also want to tell you that the triggers will not necessarily stop. So if you're 2 years in or 3 years in, there should be no fear, because this ended up to be a huge blessing for us in so many ways. But it was just another blindsided thing that happened. I didn't think anyone out there had photos that they had not sent us already. We saw photos of him in the woods. We had seen a few at the time. I think a couple people from that film set did send us, but these were all new things. And he had been on interviews with people. Like, he was in the background, but he was standing there with the whole crew, and he would be there. And just, so much about that last year, and that being the highlight of his film career, and sadly that ended up to be all he was able to do. But it was, to him, he was almost there. He was already getting called by the actors of movies to be on film sets, because of his skills and his personality. And so it has been the happiest thing that has happened to me since he died. I am telling you that. Because of the unexpectedness of it, the timing of it. Just when you think your loved one is forgotten, they aren't. But if you're here because you've gone through a divorce or you've gone through some other trauma, just know that you might think that you're doing very well, and I am actually doing amazingly well. I mean, I'm doing so well 5 years after. According to any kind of a standard that's out there, I'm doing amazingly well. But anyone who would have known me and not known what I was going through during that time in March, 5 years after my son died, it only took like one comment about anything, happy or sad, and I was just like you just saw me, like just there again, as if it happened yesterday. And so the point of the video that I wanted to make today, first of all, just apologize for being gone so long. This channel is, I think, a very important thing. I think people need a place to come to talk about the outside things that happen to you when you grieve. You can go to a lot of places and find help with, you've just lost someone yesterday. What do? All of that. But no one talks about these kind of things. I don't know anyone who's talking about 5 years down the road, what happens when you get a picture in the mail just unexpectedly, or someone brings up your loved one's name and you thought they had forgotten, or maybe you went through a divorce and randomly someone is talking about your spouse all of a sudden, and you're in the room and you thought you were over it, and then all of a sudden, you're not. I've never been through a divorce, but I hear from people because of this channel, similar things happen. You just think you're fine, and then all of a sudden you're surprised by all of the emotion that is still buried in there. And I do not try to bury my emotion. Like right now, I could have probably stopped the video, edited it out, and never let you see me that way, but I don't try to hide the emotions that are in there, because that's the whole point of the channel, right? But I think it can be surprising. It surprised me after 5 years how much this one event, oh man, it took me, I would say, a week and a half. Thankfully, I had to work really hard to be able to afford to go, or even put my business on hold to go. So I was down here by myself a lot, and I just processed it. And I did process a little bit of it with my life coach. But anyway, guys, I'm going to let you go for today. I do want to pick up where I left off with that series I was doing, and I have all the paperwork in my file, and I had a couple more parts of that I wanted to finish, and I need to re-listen to the first 3 or 4 videos in that series, so I even know where I was at, and then I want to finish that, and then we'll start on some other topics. It may be still, weeks in between. I do want to get back to where I'm making weekly videos, but right now I can't promise that, and I'm sure you understand. So what would really help me, truly help me to have the channel be able to function better is on YouTube, first of all. I do need some help getting it out there to the people who need it. My time, because of what I've been through and trying to make up for lost time financially and in every other way, I do need to be able to know that this is valuable to, people, and that it's getting out there. So if you could please share it with friends or family who have been through grief, just tell them it may randomly help them. I'm going to be doing a lot more reviews on articles. I'm going to be just continuing to talk about topics that no one ever brings up. A lot of it'll be based now on seeing my mom and her situation, and then mine and others who have reached out to me. I have a lot of other topics that I don't think anybody is out there talking about. That would help if you make a comment to let me know that you are out there and watching. I know I've had several new subscribers in the past year, even though I haven't been putting out fresh content, but I need to hear from you. I just need to know that this is helping you, or you will not hurt my feelings. I am much tougher than I look like. Just because I've lost a child, I'm trying to do something valuable here, and it doesn't help me if there's no criticism or no feedback coming my way. So please be kind, but yet, yes, if this kind of stream of consciousness, me just talking, doesn't help you, let me know. If the more academic type videos where I go through the review of an article, or what people who have never lost anyone write about and they think they know and they don't, let me know if that helps you more. Are you wanting to know more? Let me know what topics no one talks about that you are going through, and that would really help me come up with content for this channel and know that I'm helping someone. So guys, I'm going to let you go. I do have to get back to work. I'm going to list all that stuff behind me and get it listed on eBay. I know, that right now I just, cried some tears. They're always going to be there, always. But I do want to just, at the end of this, make sure that you know that my life is very happy. I do think of my son, I think, every day. I think once in a great while, there will even 24 hours go by. It's 5 years in. I don't know for sure, because I do handle the grief a lot better. So I think that every day still he passes through my mind. But I am here to tell you that there is recovery, there is peace, and there is happiness in this path, and I need you to just follow through and do all the work that's involved. That's the hard part that no one wants to do. They want to just, think it's just going to happen with time, and time does not really heal. Time plus hard work plus discipline, it really will heal you, though. And so, my life's really good today. I've got my black milk tea. I make brewed tea, and I got milk in it. Let's see, where is it? I'm in the middle of this wonderful novel. This is I have a literature degree from years ago that I don't use, but I love, academic type stuff. I'm in the middle of this wonderful book. I work. I have my own business. I travel. I have nieces and nephews. I have 2 other children who are pretty involved in my life. My son calls me every day. My daughter I see a lot, but she is very busy at college. And of course, they've been through their own. There are still impacts in our family of the tragedy that happened to my 2 children. There are ways of doing things and things that we're still all working through. We're trying to all reestablish our relationship without Tim, my son, and that is still 5 years down the road, ongoing, right? But life is just amazingly happy. Today I'm going to work out, I'm going to smile and be happy. And I went to dinner yesterday with my son and my mom, and this is where I really hope that you want to be. You have to want to be here, though. You have to want for life to be really, really happy, and then on the side, when it comes up, or when your loved one comes up, then you can take the time to grieve. But then over here, 99% of your day has to be for yourself. My life has to be completely for myself now. I cannot just identify myself as a mother of 3 children. I had someone ask me the other day, just when I was doing my work. This is a very young mother. She has 1 child. She's a 2-year-old. And I had to make a decision. What do I do? She asked me, oh, well, how many kids do you have? And I have not been asked that for over a year, I don't think, because everybody knows me. This is a very small town. No one asks me how many kids I have. They know, So I forget that I work out of town now where people don't know me. And so she asked me, and I thought, and it's suddenly I just had to make a decision. So I told her I have 2 living children, and I told her the ages of those, and I did not bring up, oh yeah, my other son died of epilepsy. I didn't do that. I didn't burden her. She's a young mother with a 2-year-old. I did not do that.